Okay, it is 4 p.m. Thank you for joining our presentation today from NCEES. We're going to be doing beginning of year for the principals for 2022-2023. It's a brand new school year. So we're going to get started with that. I am Cammie Nairn. I am your NCEES Education Product Consultant and manage the NCEES system side of things here at DPI on the home base team. Joining me today is Miss Jennifer Bass, and I'll let Miss Jennifer introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. As Cammie said, I am Jennifer Bass, and I am the NCEES coordinator at DPI, and I help Cammie with a lot of these webinars talking about just NCEES in general and answering any questions that you might have.
Yep. So if you have policy questions, they're for Jennifer. And if you have system questions, just send those to me. I'd also like my other colleague who's helping us with our questions today, and that's Miss Audrey Long, to say hello as well.
Hello, as Cammie said, I'm Audrey, and I usually assist Cammie with the NCEES webinar. So if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat, and I'll let Cammie know when you have that question. Thank you for joining us.
All right, thank you. You can find a link to today's slides in the chat, and we'll keep posting that as more folks join, because I know we had over 30 signed up, so I'm hoping a few more might jump on. But we're going to go ahead and get started. In the interest, we only have an hour today. So we are on WebEx, which I think most of you are used to us joining on that today. If you need closed captions, they're under the circle on your bar, on your menu bar. You can let the closed caption show and then also record. If you need to unmute, you're welcome to do that. We are a small group. We're fine with you unmuting to ask questions, or use your chat, recording it in the chat. If you send it to everyone, somebody else probably has the same question you do as well. So you can use the chat to answer questions. If you do have any private questions, you're welcome to use the Q&A. That'll be found under the 3 dots, and we'll follow up on those private questions as well. So today we're going to look at accessing NCEES. It is a brand new year. I don't know if we have anybody new with us today, but I believe most folks on here have been in NCEES before. And then we'll review, this is the principal session, so we're going to start by reviewing the principal evaluation process, and then also review the teacher evaluation process. And look just real quickly at confirming your staff list if you're the principal or if you're a district administrator that's joining us, and setting those plan types and confirming your staff rosters. And then also reviewing assigning rights to different staff to be peers or observers, such as that. All right, so let's take a look at accessing NCEES. So all of our slides have screenshots for you to refer back to. We can go to the live site if needed. Just let us know. There may be a couple times that we do go to the live site. But here is a look at our single sign-on system, and it's located at my.ncedcloud.org. And it has had a recent update this summer, so it will look a little different. The sign-in is just a slight difference, but not much, so you still enter your username. If you've never logged into NCEES before, you'll work with your district on when to go claim your account and set up your username and password. Your username at a PSU will be your 10-digit UID that you've been assigned. And then you'll create your password, and that'll be on the second login page. And once you log in, it will load up your dashboard. And in the dashboard, it does look different now. It's got a little bit bigger icon with a little bit more information in it. You can bookmark those icons and then show your favorites or show your bookmarks instead of showing all the links in there, which might be an easier view for you. But we're looking for the blue cyan letter P. NCEES, our North Carolina Educator Effectiveness System, is owned by PowerSchool. They are the vendor for NCEES. So you're going to look for the PowerSchool letter P. Underneath it, it says Unified Talent, because NCEES falls under their Unified Talent suite of products. So you're going to click on that to open NCEES. Since this is a principal webinar, we're looking at the principal landing page. And in your landing page, you're going to look at your navigation across the top. You're always going to land on the home page when you first come into the system. And on the home page is going to be our NCEES welcome, a list of any webinars we're having, and any other news will be on this page. Then you're going to have links for my evaluation, where you're going to find your principal evaluation. Staff evaluations are people who you have access to. Those will fall up under there. And staff evaluations, and we're going to talk about this later, only show started plans. So if you're missing people here, make sure they've started their plan. We're going to take a look at help guides. The other places that we won't go over today is professional development, where you can search for free PD from DPI here, and then manage that PD under My Courses. Transfer Credit Manager is just a way to enter outside credits. And then system administration, principals do have access to the user accounts page to see your staff. If you're the head principal, APs do not have access to that. My staff is also available to head principals, not to APs unless they've been assigned as a site administrator. And the same with reporting. Head principals see that so they can run reports on their staff. Site administrators can be given access to that, but the reports will only run depending on who they have access to and what location they are at. At the very top of the page, you're going to see your initials. This is a place where you can go log out of the system. There's also a tab that's called Snapshot that lists any credits you've earned in NCEES from the NCEES catalog. And if you've been in the same district for a few years, you can also see a list of your ratings from year to year on your summary evaluations under those initials. PowerSchool's help is under the question mark. There is a calendar out here that some districts may use. I do try to put our webinars out there, and we were late this year getting our webinar list out, so those will be in there soon. And then the envelope icon is where I send out messages, and if you see a red circle with a number in it, that tells you you have a message you need to read. So here's a look at the help guides page. Always look at these if you're stuck on a step. Like if we look at these comprehensive, and I'm sorry, I can't make that bigger. There's a comprehensive teacher guide or support staff guide. They have view and do for their steps. And then there's one for the evaluator or the observer can use the second guide, and then they have the opposite view and do steps. And it's listed like that and with screenshots. So those are very helpful guides. The peer observer guide is of course listed with the comprehensive because the peer is required in the comprehensive plan, but it can be used in any of these other plans. So just look through all those help guides. The principal help guides are down here toward the bottom. You have the PAP evaluation guide, and then the evaluator of the principal is the next guide. And then there's an infographic on the process for the principal evaluation. This is a look at that staff evaluations page. There is a read me note at the top of this page that says only started and active plans show on this dashboard. And that means if you've assigned a plan to somebody and their name is not showing up on this page, it's probably because they've either the plan, which needs to process overnight, at least one night to show up to the person, and then they need to start it for it to show up on this page for you to see it over here. So it needs to become active. Principal plans are already set by the system to be active, so you will, if you have access to a principal plans, always see principal plans here. However, the other plans, the comprehensive, standard, late hire, abbreviated, those staff need to start their plans and make them active to show up on this page. And you'll see that in the column, the fourth column over, it says active plan. So if it's not active, it's not going to be here. Your people are going to have probably a PDP and the comprehensive or standard evaluation. Starting the PDP does not start the evaluation. They need to do both of them. So the PDP is where they're going to go in and do their first steps of doing that self-assessment. And then the evaluation is where they're going to start it and go in and do their training and orientation first steps. So make sure that when you're ready for them to do that, that they have that done. And then those plans will show up here. As you're looking across the columns over here, the first section, 4 or 5 steps here, 4 are for the PDP statuses. So statuses show in these little flower symbols. If it's all gray, they've not started it. If it's 3/4 blue, the step or activity is in progress. If it's orange, the step or activity is almost complete, or it's been reopened for editing. And then once it's closed and complete, it turns green with a check mark. And these initial, mid-year, and end of year will have a lock when the evaluator has locked the overall activity. The self-assessment is never locked. And then on the other side of the columns are training and orientation. This is where you're going to find in the column either the teacher or staff observation 1, what status it's in, or you're going to find the status for the initial step on the principal AP plan. So this column is used for double. So if you're looking at principal plans such as this one, then that second little green check mark is for the initial principal AP step. The other place you're going to see your staff, if you're a head principal, is the My Staff page. Or if you've been given site administrator rights, you're going to see the My Staff page. This is known as your roster. So this is where your staff names show up. And we won't go through all of this because we want to get into your principal plan, but you can filter this page by name or other employee ID, position, site, different things like that. You can add filters on the page. This is where you're going to set plan types. So principal plans are already set by the system, so you don't need to worry about setting principal plans. It looks at the role of the principals as they come in, and the principal plans are set. Principals never get PDPs because their goals are set in their evaluation plan. When you're setting the plans for your counselors and teachers and so on, make sure to set both the PDP type and the teacher plan type at the same time. That informs the system what rubrics should show up in the self-assessment and in the observations and in the summary evaluation. So here's another view of the staff evaluations page. We'll go over this. We went through this in the admin webinar we held last week, so do watch that. But I just wanted to give this as a resource to you of what all you can do on the staff evaluations page. You can make lists. You can make one single list like your beginning teachers if you're working with them by pinning them and then showing your list. You can message people by checking the boxes here, and at the bottom of the screen, send a message to them. If you have archive and delete access, which is usually your NCEES DAs, that is found under the drop-down. To open a plan, you click on the owner name. To see all the plans, all the principal plans, click on the plan name, and you get a list of everybody on that plan. And then, of course, we did talk about the status progresses. And up here is a couple reports you can run. Did want to let you know on that My Staff page, you're going to see some additional folks in your district probably. We've just started adding these new roles, so these instructional support. These are folks that work with your EC, and we are going to hold a webinar for them in September, or for your EC lead for your district. We'll have a webinar in September about working with folks that need to take PD only in NCEES. You will not be setting plans for these folks. So if they have these roles, they will not need a plan. They can access and just take PD. In fact, the only navigation steps they see are for professional development. There is a one-pager right here to explain more about that. So there's a link right there for that. All right, we're going to get into the principal evaluation process. Does anybody have any questions before we start into this webinar? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer.
Hi. Thank you, Cammie. On the slide in front of you, you have a one-page outline of the principal evaluation process. This one-pager was developed for your convenience so that you could see all 7 steps of the process. and then identify the optional forms and required documents. This form can be found on the principals page of the NCEES site, and we will show you how to get to that in just a little while. There is a key on the top right-hand corner that identifies the documents that you can use for your principal evaluation process. All of those in red are required documents. Those in green are optional forms that are available to you as you're completing your evaluation process. And the black are required processes that are required by the State Board of Education. So this form is available. Okay, let's go through the process itself. At the beginning of the year, you will complete an orientation, which is a meeting to distribute the materials that outline the evaluation process to you. And as you can see, that is a required process that all principals should have an orientation to the evaluation system. Step 2 would be your pre-evaluation planning. You can see the red required document was the self-assessment. Every principal and assistant principal should fill out a self-assessment as this is required, and you should begin to develop your performance goals. And there is a performance goal form that is optional, but we do recommend that you use that to begin to lay out your goals for the year along with your assessor or evaluator. And that should be completed before you hit step number 3, which is the initial meeting between you and the person who evaluates you. That may be your superintendent or someone that they have assigned to be the evaluator of you for the principal or assistant principal role. This should be a one-to-one meeting, and you're going to be discussing the self-assessment that you filled out. You're going to talk about the developed goals that you have for yourself this year. And then you're going to talk about what evidence and data and artifacts you plan to collect throughout the year to see how you're progressing in your goal. The principal and AP and the superintendent would meet and agree on the components that were within your goals and your level of performance that they want to see. Then we'd move on to step 4, which is throughout the year, where you're going to be collecting that data that is evidence to support the goals that you have chosen and your superintendent has agreed upon. Hopefully throughout the year, the superintendent is going to be visiting your school and talking with you throughout the year. This, as you can see on the side, the green, there is a principal and assistant principal evaluation process document that you can use. That is optional, but we do suggest that you use it. It will help to guide that, the conference dates, the visits, and all the data that you're collecting in your school. So this is the data process. Step 5 is your mid-year conference. This is where you're going to meet with your superintendent or the designee to discuss how are you doing on attaining your goals. What data do you have that is showing that you're meeting your goals and also that you have student growth within your school? You can use in green, yet again, that mid-year evaluation process goal form that you can use as you have this conversation. So what adjustments need to be made? That says at the bottom, if there's anything that needs to be changed, other data you need to collect, you can decide that then along with your superintendent or your evaluator. I'm sorry, Kami, I'm messing you up, aren't I? Okay, and then we'll move on to step number 6, which is you are, as the principal, are going to prepare a consolidated performance assessment. And this needs to be done in steps 4 and 5. You are going to provide the superintendent or the designee your goals, your data. This is where you're going to decide, how did I do this year, and does my evidence and my artifacts support my goals being accomplished? And that's happening at the end of the year. And then we go to take all of that to step 7, which is your summary evaluation conference. This is where you're actually evaluated for the year. At this meeting, you are going to meet and discuss your self-assessment, which was required. You're going to talk about your consolidated performance assessment and how you did upon your goals for the year, and you're going to then have your summary evaluation form, which is going to be filled out on your rubric, and that is required. That would be similar to what the teachers have at the end of the year, where you're going to have your summary evaluation. And then you would probably start beginning to think about what goals you would have for next year along with your superintendent. But you would talk about how you did this year with achieving your goals. So those are the 7 steps.
Okay, so here are a couple of guides. Your principal AP evaluation guide is linked here. I may need to update this link. It might go to the old Google site. Just one word, the Google site is still up and running for NCEES, but it will go away. So we are going to show you how to get to our new site as well and find these resources as well.
I did update that earlier.
You did? Okay, good.
So we'll go to the new site.
Oh, let's try it. So this is a public site, just like the Google site was, so you don't need a Blue Canvas account to get in here. Yep, and it does go to the principal evaluation process. And of course, here you can find all the policies, any procedures, additional resources, and then there's a list, a comparison chart out here. I think that might be for the teacher standards. I want to say, yeah, these are for the teacher standards. Okay. If we go back home, I'll show you how the first page looks so you can see how it looks different from if you've been on the Google site before. It just gives you, here's your teacher resources, here's where your principal resources are found, where we just were on, and then of course support staff, central office, superintendent, and then the DPI website. We'll be talking about beginning of year orientation later, and that is found down here in the bottom. Is the orientation links, online PD opportunities in NCEES, and then NCVPS has a list of courses as well in NCEES. And then here's our webinar series, so always be checking out here for the upcoming webinars. If you are on the new pilot rubric, the principal, we are doing a pilot of the new principal rubric with about 4 or 5 districts, so you know who you are. Here's your information here. All right, so I wanted to just give you a screenshot of what the self-assessment looks like. This is actually new last year. I just want to remind you that when you finalize your self-assessment, it now marks it complete, so you don't have to do an extra step. Wanted to reiterate who can see what. There's 2 different areas for notes in the data collection container in the principal evaluation plan. So artifacts and notes are viewable to the evaluator and the principal. Evaluator notes are only viewable to the evaluator. And then of course, here's your rubric. So if you're on that pilot rubric, make sure you come out here and make sure you see 8 standards instead of 7. Everybody else that's on the current rubric will see 7 standards. As different steps are completed in the plan, emails do go out. So this is just a list to let you know who's going to receive what email. So like when the principal sets their goals, there's an email sent to the evaluator, and such as that. You can read over that yourself. To start your plan, you would go to My Evaluation, Current Evaluation tab. Notice there are 3 tabs here: Current, Archived, and Deactivated. Archived are your plans that are from last year as long as you're in the same district. If you have changed districts and you had a plan in your previous district, it moves to deactivated, and that is so the new district does not see your plan without asking you to see it. So if they ask you to see it, you do have a choice to come out here under deactivated evaluations and print it out for their viewing. But archived is where you see any plans still connected to your current district, but from previous years. And we're going to look at the current evaluation to see our current year. This is an old screenshot. You'll see one that says 2022, 2023, and you'll see a start button. Once you click that start button, the box changes to look like this, and you would just then click on the title to re-access your plan. You're going to come in, you're going to complete the orientation activity in the evaluation plan as well. And so you just click on the orientation and open it. You're going to click edit, and then you're going to view the links for the policies and the manuals and put in the date when you received your orientation. Some of you have been doing that in the last couple of weeks. So this is where you're going to enter the date that you held your principal, you attended your principal orientation here, and then just click save and save and exit if you're done with this window here. There's just a close-up view of what we just talked about. If you were to click back instead of marking this session complete, it does put that orange circle that I talked about it because you're not fully complete with it. You just need to re-enter and mark your orientation complete. Here's the steps 2 through 4. That's your pre-evaluation self-assessment and setting your goals, and then having that initial meeting where you're going to do your goal setting, evaluator signature, and the principal signatures here. And then the data collection is where those artifacts and notes go, and the rubric is completed by the evaluator. All right, so that's the principal plan. Do you guys need to see anything on the live side, or do you have any questions about completing your principal plan with your evaluator? All right, we're just going to have a short wait time because we only have about 30 minutes left. So if you think of any questions, do put them in the chat and we'll be glad to answer those. So we also know that the principals work with teachers. So we're going to take a look at the teacher evaluation process. And these steps also apply to your other staff that you'll be evaluating or observing. So we're going to focus on this. Just want to let you remind you of what's been going on in the activity steps and let you know what's new. So new this year is we fully updated all of the steps in the activities. So when you're clicking into the evaluations and getting ready to do an observation, you're going to see all these activity steps. But now we've matched what's in the help guides to let you know who does what step. So the pre-observation conference is done by the evaluator, and then the teacher acknowledges, and then the formal observation is done by the evaluator or the observer, depending on who's been given that activity, and then so on. So this is just updating the titles to let you know who's doing what step. A reminder that last year we updated this to please enter your times in this example shown. So hour, colon, minute, AM or PM. This helps your people that are running reports to determine if the right amount of time is being held for formal observations and informal observations. If you don't enter the time like this, they cannot calculate those minutes. So please enter your times to help your people that are running those reports. We're working with PowerSchool to get a widget that will help you enter these times like this, but right now you have to manually enter the hour, minute, AM or PM, please. And then select your date when you're setting the date for the observation. Just another reminder that optional activities don't show all the completion process as required activities do. So required activities have a flower on them at the very top. So observation 1 is a required activity, and it shows that this one is in progress. However, if it was optional, like those additional observations or even a peer observation in the standard plan, it would not have a flower at the top up here. So people always say, well, how do I know when it's done? If you come over to your dashboard and you see a green completed check mark, it's done. Or if you see a green check mark with a lock, especially if it has the lock on it, then you know all the required steps, including the signatures, are done, because you cannot lock it until the signatures and the required steps are in place. So you just have to check on your dashboard to see if it's fully complete for optional activities. So just a reminder that your staff, your teachers have a ability to enter written responses after you have those conferences or even before. They can use written response at any point to submit artifacts or comments to the evaluator. And this is just showing you what that looks like. Once they submit it, then the evaluator must acknowledge it. And this is the acknowledgement view where you're going to come in here and edit. You must select yes to get out of here and then save and exit, or just cancel it if you didn't mean to go into it. But you will get an email whenever they submit a written response. Another update, there's a step called the Document Observation Acknowledgement Override, and this is for district administrators, site administrators, observers. If you have a post-observation conference and the teacher has refused to acknowledge, the acknowledgement is just that the process was followed, not that they agreed with what was said or what was done. It's just that the process was legally followed as required by policy. But if they're still refusing to acknowledge, to move on with the plan, and this is in the observations only, we have this document observation acknowledgement override. There was a button in there that allowed you to delete what was entered, but we found that this also deleted what was entered in other forms that are the same form used for the document acknowledgement override. So we have this year removed this delete button. If there's ever any data in here that you feel needs to be removed, tell your lead to open a ticket with NCDPI and we can get PowerSchool to remove any data. But we had to remove the delete because this form would delete data in 3 different areas. Even if you start the document override and don't use it, don't worry that it's showing in progress. Just move on with the plan. It's not going to hurt anything. All right, and then I'll let you read over any of these other fixes. Evaluators can no longer acknowledge in the pre-observation conference the teacher acknowledgement, which they should not be doing anyway. And then you should be able to attach larger files now. That was fixed. And then another delete area was removed that shouldn't have been there. We did update the evaluation rubrics to our new NCEES resources site that we just showed you. And we're getting ready to go back in and get ready to talk about that beginning of year orientation for your teachers and other staff. All right, we'll turn it back over to Jennifer.
Okay, thank you. We just did want to point out part of your responsibilities as a principal are to evaluate and observe your teachers. So we want to keep in mind that educator evaluation is about growth and improvement above all else. The whole purpose of the NCEES system is to assess the teacher's performance in relation to the North Carolina professional teaching standards and to help design a plan for their professional growth. That is the whole point of the evaluation system, and that's something that we want you to hold on to. For NCEES information and resources, we do have the new public site, and there it is again. And on this site, you can see at the bottom there with the red arrow, there is the BOY orientation resources. And on these resources, we need you to know the beginning of the year orientation, the staff should have a face-to-face or virtual orientation meeting to discuss any questions or to make sure they understand exactly what's going to be happening during the year with NCEES. We do recommend that you gather your staff together and possibly watch the new teacher orientation recorded webinar that we have. That was done by Dr. Kim Simmons a few years back. It's still very relevant, and it's a great way to go ahead and get that orientation done with your staff. But prior to orientation, the principals do need to send a reminder email regarding that meeting and provide links to the NCEES Google sites. They're not Google sites anymore. It's our regular site, our Canvas site, where all the evaluation information and resources are housed. And remember, for orientation, within 2 weeks of a teacher's first day of work, in any school year. That means even if they come in late, the principal must provide the teacher with a copy or directions for how they can access the rubric that they will be evaluated on. They also need to provide a copy or lead them to the state board policy for evaluation, eval 00-004. And you also need to provide them with a schedule for completing all the components of the evaluation process so that they know what time frames they will be not evaluated, but observed and then evaluated at the end of the year.
Okay, and this is just a screenshot as you're planning your calendar, what needs to be done in each plan type. So comprehensive plan must have observation 1, 2, 3, and a peer. It's required. All of these must be in place and locked before the summative evaluation container opens. So standard, you must have observations 1 through 3. Peer is optional. Abbreviated, you must have observations 1 and 2 on standards 1 and 4. And then the other peer is optional there as well. Late hire plan, you must have at least one observation done before the summative container opens, but more can be done. All the standards and all the observations are available in the late hire plan, but that should not be assigned until like after mid-year. There is a rule around that. So just want to let you know also that we ask that all our districts be done with NCEES, and that means the plans are completed, signed, locked, all the activities are done, and any reports are run for your district by June 29th, 2023. That gives us June 30th to check over everything and prepare for the vendor to archive the plans at the end of the day on June 30th, 2023. All right.
All right, we're going to talk just a little bit about the teacher evaluation process steps now.
So I think we have a question though.
Okay.
How long is that webinar? Is that the orientation webinar, Melanie? I think the orientation webinar is about, is it 30 minutes long?
It's 20 to
Yeah.
30 minutes. It's not very
She
long
answered
at all.
and said it was an hour, but I was just asking, like, if that's something I'm going to plan to do in a staff meeting, I kind of want to know how long to plan for.
Okay.
I think it's no more than 30 minutes. I think it's more like 20.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right. Thank you for the question. All right. I think that's all.
Okay. On the page that you're seeing now, this is an actual graph of the evaluation process for the year. It can be found on page 21 in the teacher evaluation manual, and that we do have a link up there so that you can see this whole graphic and the process if you want to do that later. But let's go through and talk about the steps of the teacher evaluation process. We want to make sure that principals have a good understanding. Component 1, it is shaded in green, and this is the training. This is step 1, training and orientation. Let's talk about component 1. Before participating in the evaluation process, all teachers, principals, peer evaluators must complete training on the evaluation process itself. We encourage you to check the NCEES site for any upcoming webinars. And remember that you do have access to our PD system that's housed within NCEES online tool, where you can find online modules, courses, presentations, and resources to support you in your professional development. Then we'll move on to component 2, which is the orientation, which we were talking about earlier. Remember, within the first 2 weeks of a teacher's first day, you're going to provide the rubric, the evaluation policy, and the schedule for completing the evaluation process. Then we'll move on to step 2, which is the dark circle, purple circle on your right, in the right. It's the self-assessment, goal setting, and the pre-conference section. Let's take a look at component number 3. This is the teacher self-assessment. They're going to use the rubric for evaluating North Carolina teachers, and they will rate their performance to reflect on their performance throughout the year. The self-assessment should be a personal reflection about their own professional practice to identify their own strengths and their areas that they would like to improve upon. A teacher's self-assessment should be completed without input from others. The whole purpose of the self-assessment is to clarify the performance expectations and to help guide discussions about their goals throughout the year and any program needs or anything that they need to grow. The self-assessment is a tool that you can use to review and change throughout the year. They may choose to share their self-assessment with their principal, or they may choose not to share their self-assessment, but we highly encourage teachers to share their goals and their self-assessment so that their principal can help to guide them throughout the year. Then we'll move on to component 4, which is the pre-observation conference. This is to prepare the principal for the observation. Before the first formal observation, the principal needs to meet with the teacher to discuss 3 things. First, they need to talk about the self-assessment that was just completed by the teacher. They need to discuss the professional growth plan or PDP that the teacher has written, and they need to talk a lot about the lesson that they're getting ready to go in and observe. So let's take a closer look at the PDP plans. There are 3 types of plans, as you know, the individual, monitored, and directed. The individual plan is for new teachers and teachers who are rated at least proficient on all of the standards on the teacher summary rating form. Teachers, in this plan, the teachers set their individual goals for growth. They meet with the administrator 3 times during the year to discuss them, BOY, MOY, and end of year, okay? For the monitored plan, the teachers that will be on this plan are the ones who are who are rated developing on 1 or more standards on the teacher summary rating form. On this PDP, the administrator and the teacher meet together and discuss the goals and set those goals together. They also should meet at least 3 times during the school year to discuss the goals and the goal progress. The third type of PDP is the directed. The teachers that we put on a directed plan have not demonstrated on any standard of the teacher summary rating form, or they have developing on 1 or more standards in the teacher summary rating form for 2 sequential years. On the directed PDP plan, the administrator will set the goals for the teacher based on the observations and documentation. They will meet with the teacher to review the document development plan, and they will meet at least 3 times during the year to discuss progress on their plans. So these are the 3 types of plans. Are there any questions about the plan types or who would be placed on which one?
Not seeing any questions.
Yep, that's good. Now, lastly, we're going to look at component 4, the pre-observation conference. Did we just go over this one? Okay, this is, as I said, to prepare the principal for the observation. And it happens before the first formal observation, and they're going to meet and talk about the self-assessment, the professional growth plan, and the written description of the lesson plan that they're going to be watching.
Yeah.
Here we go. Okay, in red, we're going to look at step 3 on our circle. This is the observation cycle, the administrative and the peer. In component 5, there we have observations themselves. There are 2 types of observations. There's a formal observation, which is a 45-minute observation, or the entire session or lesson. There's also an informal observations, which last 20 minutes. Teachers who have been employed less than 3 years would be on the comprehensive evaluation cycle, which would be 3 formal observations by the principal or their designee, like an AP, and then 1 formal, which is done by the peer. So they would have 4 total observations for the year. And then teachers who have been employed more than 3 years, they would be on the standard or abbreviated evaluation cycle. The standard would be 3 observations. 1 must be the formal, which is 45 minutes for a class period, and the others can be the informal, which would be 20 minutes. Then the abbreviated would be 2 observations on standards 1 and 4 only. The abbreviated observations can be formal or informal, but we do suggest to you that if we have teachers who are renewing their license year, they need to be placed on the standard evaluation cycle. And this is a graphic that kind of shows what's required for each type of evaluation cycle. So you can see everybody has to have a self-assessment. Everyone must have a PDP, but the number of evaluations, not evaluations, but observations change based on whether they're on the comprehensive standard or abbreviated. And if they are on abbreviated, they're only looking at standards 1 and 4. So we just want to make sure that we understand observations are a year-long evaluation process where we're collecting formative feedback and formative assessments all year during those observations when we're actually in the classroom and when we're watching teachers out in the hallways or at events or parent events. We're always watching and collecting data. There is a misconception for a lot of teachers and some principals that teachers are evaluated and rated numerous times during the year, and that totally burdens our focus on growth for teachers in this process. Everyone is actually only evaluated one time at the end of the year, at which times the ratings are assigned for each standard. But remember, the observation is just one collection of data to inform the evaluation at the end of the year. So then we'll move on to component 6, the post-observation conference. The principal shall conduct the post-observation conference no later than 10 school days after each formal observation. The purpose of this post-observation conference is to discuss and document strengths and weaknesses on the rubric. So let's remember the slide when I emphasize the purpose of the evaluation is all about growth and improvement. The post-observation conference is the heart of what we are working to accomplish, which is growth for teachers. The post-observation conference should focus on the evidence that is gathered during the observations. Teachers should have the opportunity to reflect on the observation as it relates to the rubric. So we always want to guide them back to the language of the rubric itself. Observers should focus on providing relevant feedback on descriptors and how to grow forward for improving practices. The language of the rubric should always be used to ensure that an accurate interpretation of the standards is happening. The post-observation conference is a crucial part of the evaluation process. This meeting between teachers and observers provides the opportunity for strengthened communication that results in a plan for continued improvement for the teacher's practice. During the post-observation conference, the principal and teacher discuss and document on the rubric the strengths and weaknesses of the teacher's performance during the observed lesson. The post-observation conference should not include discussion of ratings. And I've said if I could improve one thing, I would take the ratings off until the summative actually happened, just because we want to focus on the rubric itself, not the ratings. And keep in mind, the post-observation conversation should be linked back to the descriptors, as I just said, not the rating categories. And those descriptors, we're looking for knowledge, action, interaction, and extension within lessons. So no one observation should fully inform a teacher's rating. We're going to collect the data throughout the year to use at the end for the evaluation. Are there any questions before I pass it back over to Cammie?
Okay.
I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, so just real quickly, I know sometimes the principals are helping do the staff rosters and the My Staff list and looking at those. So I wanted to give you the help guide for assigning plan types. We did briefly look at this My Staff page earlier and talk about setting the plan types. That the principal plans are already set by the system based on principal roles, and everybody else needs to have their plan type set, allow them to process overnight, and then advise the teacher or the other staff to start their plans. So they'll show up on We got 10 minutes. So they'll show up on the staff evaluations plan. You can look under all staff to see if plans have been started or not. I don't know if I put a slide in there for not. Oh, here's just a bigger screenshot of the plan types that you can select. Teacher is the only one that has an abbreviated plan at this time. Counselors, social workers, they have comprehensive, standard, and late hire. So the only group that has an abbreviated plan right now is the teacher. And then if they are not getting an evaluation, like I told you, those new support staff are going to be coming in to do PD only. You can set them to no evaluation, just to let the system know let you know when you're pulling reports that you did look at those staff. We also added no PDP for folks that don't get a PDP. Here's the page, the filter here is where I wanted to show you. And when you're setting those plan types, now that we've added the new PD only people, their position is called support. All teachers, counselors, school media, ITFs, all of those kind of roles fall under the definition of educator and instructional. So they will all be under instructional. So if when you're setting plan types, you don't want to see the support people, you can add a filter to say position does not contain support. And then you're only looking at instructional and administrative, like your principals and things. So you can use your filters to filter this page. The filters hold during your session. They don't hold from day to day. Then over here is a link to people's emails, so you can email them from the page. And under here, we're looking at this all staff link is where you can go once the plan types are set to see if they've started their plan. So we went to my staff, all staff. If you have this access, you'll have a drop down by the people you have access to, and you can see the assigned plans have populated. This person has started their PDP because it says edit, but they've not started abbreviated plan, so it says you need to start right here. So just advise them to start their plan. And then somebody is assigning staff access rights. Sometimes that is the site administrators. So here's just a list of the different types of plan access rights you can do. Evaluator. Evaluators can get into all the observations and the summary evaluation. Observer. What if you have an AP that you don't want to get into that summary evaluation, but you want them to do an observation? You can give them observer rights. And this is for the main observations 1, 2, and 3, or additional 1, 2, and 3. If somebody needs to do a peer observation, they actually need this right called peer observer. This observer could start a peer observation, but they can never sign off on the peer observation. So make sure you give your peer observers this role, peer observer. And then there's the view only, the reopen admin. View only is usually good for people that need to see plans but don't need to edit plans. Reopen admin, this is usually most of your district administrators or NCEES district assigned administrators do have reopen rights, not all, but most. And they can go unlock an activity in case somebody needs to edit an activity. So that's what reopen is. Also have the ability to archive plans as well. And then the mentor, you need to sign your mentors. This access right is found under the PDP plans. If you're the one setting rights, you need to make sure all the plan types are set, let them process, and then when you go to the administration staff management to assign rights, then those plans will show up there as well. So that is our webinar for today. I do have a few resource slides. I'm going to copy this link. This is our feedback form. We do want to hear good, bad. Did you enjoy the webinar? Did you want something different from the webinar? Did you need other activities in the webinar? Just let us know in this feedback. And you also have the option to get a certificate for today. And let me paste that in there. The last couple questions on the feedback are, do you want this certificate? So just elect to receive that. It is for 1 hour worth or 0.1 CEU today of general credit. So you can print that out. You'll get an email that you need to print out. You don't get a certificate form. It's actually your email. It's in your email. So when that comes, it usually takes 15, 20 minutes at the most once you complete the form to send you this certificate. You can also try to do it on your device. If you have like a phone, you want to scan that QR code, that also goes to the feedback form. Here's a link to our webinars. Upcoming next will be the new user basics tomorrow. So if you're brand new users, please share out this link and have them join us tomorrow. We do record all our webinars, so they will be posted. And then next week, August 23rd, we're doing beginning of year for teachers and support staff. This is also good for principals to look at. We'll be doing a little bit deeper dive than we did over the teacher plan today with our teachers and support staff. And then the last link is an on-demand link here, understanding the teacher rubric. This is all about the growth and conversations you have in those observations. Very wonderfully done by Dr. Robert Sachs, who got to retire this past summer. So we are going to miss him, but that's a wonderful webinar for both evaluators and your staff to view. We do post all our webinars once they're recorded on the YouTube playlist, and there will be posted links on our website and on our newsletter and on the homepage of NCEES. And then we do have a Facebook. Our home base team, my home base team does have a Facebook, and we're going to start updating these soon. We usually like to put a Wednesday, did you know, so we'll get those started soon. With all our travel this summer, we've been going around a lot, so these should get started back toward the end of September. And then here's your contacts for NCEES. So we're always, Jennifer and I, welcome you to send us emails. We're happy to help and assist and get you what you need. So don't hesitate to email us. We do have advisory reps from the different PSUs that represent you. So if you have any questions that you'd like to send to DPI, these might be the folks that you can contact about those for NCEES questions. And then I also have an office hours that I don't mind if you have a team for NCEES questions, PD, evaluation, or otherwise. These are 30-minute appointments, and I'm happy to answer the questions on those as well. So just pick a time. If you can't find a time, then email me, and I'll be happy to find a time that will work for both of us. This is just if you're having issues in NCEES, you do have a NCEES lead that is designated to open ServiceNow tickets with us. So make sure you contact them. If you're that person, this is the information you need. If not, if you're just contact your principal, you can contact the county NCEES lead. It's going to be your county NCEES lead that probably has this access. And I'll go back to our feedback and see if you guys have any questions before we wrap this up. It's 4:58, so we did good on time. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Audrey, for helping with questions, and thank you, Jennifer.
Thank y'all all for joining.
All right, I'm going to give you one more minute, see if you have any questions. Looks like everybody's heading out for the day. Y'all have a wonderful evening. I'm going to stop the recording.